cloudy, definitely cloudy, damp, and expected to be wet through Thursday. Overnight lows dropping down to about 55 and highs tomorrow 69. Currently, we are at 62 degrees here in San Bernardino. Your drive looks like this. Stop and go on the 91 freeway eastbound between Green River and Highway 71. There is an accident on the shoulder of the 91 on the westbound side right there at La Sierra, so expect some slowing in that area. Also in Colton, there's stop and go traffic on the 215 southbound between the 10 freeway and Mount Vernon Avenue. That's the latest in news, weather, and traffic on the station that leaves no listener behind, KCAA 1050 AM.
CNBC Headline News is brought to you exclusively by West Coast Auto, located at 5180 Holt Boulevard in Montclair, where you'll find the widest selection of the most pristine used automobiles in Southern California.
There are 3 reasons why West Coast Auto of Montclair has been consistently named top-rated pre-owned dealer in California. Quality, trust, savings. Every vehicle is hand-selected, extensively serviced, and reconditioned by our certified technicians, so you can feel certain that you're getting the best-in-class vehicles with financing options that work for you. Like 0% down and no payments for 90 days.
Experience the best for yourself with West Coast Auto of Montclair. Online at westcoastauto.com or by calling 909-9000.
Do you have a broken window or rock chip on your vehicle that needs repair? Give us a call at HM Auto Glass, 951-858-5190. HM Auto Glass is your locally owned and operated auto glass specialist, offering low cost and high quality auto glass repair and replacement. We also work with all major insurance companies and offer free mobile service. So call us, 951-858-5190. That number again is 951-858-5190.
This is KCAA.
Welcome to Relationships 2.0. I'm Dr. Michelle Skeen. My special guest today is Susan Campbell. She is the author of 5-Minute Relationship Repair, Quickly Heal Upsets, Deepen Intimacy, and Use Differences to Strengthen Love. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Michelle.
It's great to have you on.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
So, I'm sure you love the way these publishing companies write books to make people think they can actually learn something in 5 minutes. They're saying that once you go through your book and learn these tools and skills that you are presenting, that then the repair takes 5 minutes. Not that it takes 5 minutes to learn the whole thing, right?
That's right. That's right. It can even take less than 5 minutes once you spend about 3 hours hopefully with a partner, but you can do this if you're single or if you're only person in the relationship that wants to do it. It takes about 3 hours to learn all the different elements of the repair process. And once you learn the elements, then you can put them all together into a simple, short statement.
So you're dealing with couples here, though, really often couples who have been in the relationship for a while. So as you say, falling in love is easy, staying in love and having a happy, healthy relationship is challenging. So maybe you could talk about where this idea for your book came from and why you think it's so important.
Sure. Now we realize, most of us who have been working with couples for a while, or if you've been a couple for a while, you realize that sometimes you get your buttons pushed by your partner. And this is one of the biggest challenges in a relationship, is triggers or buttons. And what that means is you have these automatic fear reactions to something your partner does. It's usually based on some kind of a misunderstanding, based on your own insecurities. So my co-author, John Gray, and I have been observing this phenomenon for me, 45 years. And particularly it's been more apparent in the last 30 years or so more and more people are even beginning to know the word trigger or know the word get buttons pushed. So that's a beginning. And so we think that couples really need to get a handle on what are these triggers and what causes them, and how do we work with them once the button's been pushed, because that's when a lot of damage can get done, and that's why we need to repair. Like once the button's pushed and you've said things that you wish you didn't say, you've criticized your partner, you've walked out, you've shut down, whatever, then and say what we really need to say.
Yeah, so the triggers aren't really the problem, it's the behavioral reactions to the triggers that are causing damage in the relationship.
That's right.
So
we have to accept that we all have triggers. We can't turn them off.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, absolutely. So could you give a few examples? Everyone is always really helped by lively examples when we're looking at what are you seeing in your practice mostly that are triggers? Are they gender specific? What are you working with mostly?
Yeah, first I'll give you a generic example of what some of the common triggers are. I call them our favorite fears. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being controlled, fear of being insignificant or unimportant. So those are the kind of things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, a concrete example is in the book, Eric and Donna are this typical couple where they're out on a date. They've been married 15 years, but they try to have these date nights that make the relationship special. And Eric's checking his cell phone during the meal because he's got an important deal pending the next day. But, of course, Donna doesn't know this, so she sees him checking the cell phone, and she gets triggered. Now, I can go on to what happens next, but that's a common example in this day and age. You want your partner's attention, but your partner's attention is on something else.
Right.
That's a very triggering event for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and what are you finding for, that sounds like often a woman's complaint is that she's just not getting the attention that she wants, or she's not getting it in the way that she wants it, which maybe is a conversation or a little more time focused on an exchange between the two people rather than an activity. What about for guys?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, it might be a typical woman's complaint might have something to do with the connection is broken,
right.
And a typical male complaint is something to do with, gee, I'm not okay the way I am. I have to be something different in order to please her. Why can't she just accept me the way I am? Those are some typical things.
Right.
But I've got to say that I think the bigger factor about what your buttons are, whether it's you want closeness and your partner wants a little more acceptance, or you want acceptance and your partner. Well, that whole dynamic. I think the main cause of that has more to do with your childhood early learning. Because a lot of women are avoidant. We might say, okay, men are avoidant and women are preoccupied. Those are two terms from the attachment literature. Preoccupied, you're always watching to see if the partners pay attention. Avoidant, you're trying to get away from conflict. But there's plenty of avoidant women and preoccupied men based on childhood learning.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So you're looking at these triggers, and these triggers are going to are based on early childhood experiences and patterns that are already established, that someone is feeling like they're not getting enough attention, or they're feeling that someone else is trying to control them, or an action makes them feel rejected, or makes them feel like they're going to be left.
Yeah, the essential thing that tends to trigger people is anything that seems to threaten the connection with, I put it in quotes, the one we depend on. In childhood, the one we depend on was our early caregivers, our parents. And then when we're in a close, intimate adult relationship, we bring all that same dependency. It's less serious. We're not really dependent on our partner, but it feels that way. Plus, there are some core relationship needs, like the need to feel important to my partner and accepted, those kind of things. Those are pretty universal with all people, and there's the same type of thing is universal with little babies. The little baby needs to feel safe, protected, valued, accepted. So the things we needed as children, we sort of need similar things as adults, but the context is a little different.
Right.
It's not like a survival need, literally.
So what happens when, so typically when we get triggered, we're going to have a really strong reaction, and probably a reaction that's going to be damaging to the relationship, or maybe lessen the connection between the two people, create a fight. What are you suggesting that people do once they've been triggered, or once they're recognizing patterns of what is a trigger for them?
Well, first I want to amend just something you said before I say what to do. What to do when you get triggered? That is the important part.
Right.
But many people don't have even noticeable reaction, so it's not such a really strong reaction for a lot of people. It may be a numbness or a shutdown, or you may just feel kind of heavy, and you don't even realize you're triggered, or you might not even realize your partner's triggered. So the signals are sometimes so subtle. So that's why we have to really study this kind of thing. And I can tell you how you know when you're triggered. But
talk about that.
Maybe I should start with that and then talk about what to do once you're triggered.
Absolutely.
So how you know when you're triggered, and yet you need to value being a good self-observer to get this knowledge. You look at your body sensations. Sometimes, like I mentioned, sometimes you just have this heavy feeling, or you might feel like you've been stabbed in the heart or punched in the gut, or you might start making fists. Your body starts tensing up, breathing starts getting fast. So you have the body sensations, or you might have feelings that have to do with anger, or I got to get out of here. I've got to change the situation. Like this is not okay. This is bad. Somebody's bad or wrong here. So those are the kind of feelings. And you might have stories like, my partner's not that into me, he's checking his cell phone, or she criticizes me for checking my cell phone. Man, my story is I can't do anything right around her. And the stories, some people are more mental types, and they don't really have feelings or body sensations that they're aware of. So it's really important for our listeners to be aware of the words that play in your mind, especially if they're familiar words that are critical of your partner or critical of yourself, or kind of hopeless feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to watch for. So if you know that if you start judging your partner, you're probably triggered.
Okay.
So try that on, folks. And now once you've noticed that, and that takes some skill and some self-observation, then what you want to do, and we ask couples to have a discussion about this. You want to agree on a pause signal with your partner, so that any time either of you notices triggering happening, either in yourself or your partner, either one can say pause or time out, some simple signal that you both agree on. So that's a big step right there, because that interrupts the automatic pattern of going down the wrong road and just...
Right. So it's kind of a timeout.
It's a timeout. Kids, we do that with our children.
No, timeouts work.
We need to do that with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is in order to calm yourself down.
Right.
You might do some breathing. You might pay attention to your sensations, like the chair you're sitting on supporting you. The calming period is all about mobilizing your own self-support a little bit, so that you are stronger inwardly to handle what you're really dealing with, which is some intense feelings. And then the final step is look inward to see what is associated with that trigger. Like, okay, you're triggered. But if you stay with the feelings a little bit longer, sometimes you'll get a feeling, oh, yeah, this is that familiar feeling of I'm all alone. Gee, I've felt this all my life. Donna's sitting there at the dinner table, and he's checking his cell phone. She goes, I'm all alone in this relationship. Oh, that sort of feeling. And a lot of us have felt something like that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You see that familiar tape begin to play, then sometimes you even remember a childhood memory. Not necessarily. It's not necessary to have vivid memories. But if you do, then you kind of embrace that hurt child that sat at the dinner table and was totally ignored every time she opened her mouth,
Right.
Similar to Eric and Donna on their date night. And you give yourself a little bit of compassionate, warm attention. And we have some instructions for how to get there, because a lot of people don't have compassion.
Right. No, that's a real struggle for a lot of people.
Oh, they criticize themselves for having reactions, and we do need to move to a different place with our acceptance of ourselves.
Absolutely. Oh, I completely agree. One of the thoughts I was having is, okay, in some cases, you're going to have both people in the couple who are going to be involved in this. So you can say pause or we need to have a timeout. But in some cases, and we've all done this, you're doing couples therapy with just one of the people because the other person in the couple doesn't want to do it. And I think that there's still good work that can be done. But in the case of like a timeout, I think for some people, they can experience that as kind of rejection or withdraw. Like, if they say, oh, well, we're just too emotionally heightened right now. We should just table this until another time and not talk about this right now, might not sit well with some people.
Right. Very good. Yeah, there are a lot of times when only one person is doing this work. So in the book, we give a lot of tips for that. One thing is reassure you might, first of all, own responsibility for the fact that it's your feeling. Don't ever say, well, we got to stop this now. You're getting too worked up. We don't talk about what the other person is doing.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about ourselves. So there's some basic communication ground rules that will help calm the situation, even if you're the only person doing it. Sometimes a reassuring phrase like, well, first you have to say, I'm needing to calm myself here. I'm starting to get worked up. And then you might touch your partner. You have to know who you're dealing with, but a little pat on the knee or the shoulder. I know we're going to get through this, and you look them in the eye. So if you can calm yourself enough to even say that. So those little things, and I just need to take a quick break here to calm myself, and then we can continue. So that if you're the one that's pulling away, you want to reassure your partner that you're not pulling away for very long, and you could even stay in the same physical space while one person calms down, if you're able to do that. You might have to take a bathroom break. I mean, I counsel people who get triggered in business meetings, and it's not appropriate to go through. I'm triggered.
Right. Say we need a timeout because I'm feeling emotionally overwhelmed right now.
But you can go take a bathroom break. That's acceptable. Yeah. And look yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself. I'm really safe here. This is my beloved partner. I know I've felt this before. So forth. Just reassure yourself and do the calming tools that we talk about in the book, like breathing practices.
Yeah, a lot of these skills and tools, like you said, can be used in other aspects of our lives, right?
Yes, even with your kids. Boy, your kids can push your buttons. Or your parents, if you're an adult, and your parents can still push your buttons, even though you might be 50 years old.
So people need to learn how to regulate themselves, but you also have a chapter in here about how couples can co-regulate.
Yeah.
Explain what co-regulating is.
Yeah. So for our listeners, co-regulation means helping to calm your partner's nervous system. Regulation is helping to calm and reassure yourself, and it means that you've got some kind of higher brain function operating. When you're triggered, sometimes it's just your reptilian brain that's operating. So if you have to calm yourself a little bit, that's the self-regulating. And if you've calmed yourself a little bit, then you can make that reassuring statement. I know we'll get through this. And one of the best things for co-regulation is soothing, calm voice tones like that, reassuring words.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is touch, loving touch. But again, you have to know who you're dealing with, and if your partner's really triggered and they're pulling away, maybe that's not the moment for that. But also then eye contact, a loving gaze. So all the things that little infants need to feel safe and secure and bond securely to their early caregivers, which are things like touch, soothing voice tones, and eye gazing. That loving attention, that's the same thing that you can give your partner now when they're triggered to help them feel safe and calm. We can actually heal our childhood wounds by offering this kind of co-regulation to one another on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, for people to feel heard and to be seen is very healing.
Yes, and that's what the repair process is about. It's really having your deeper needs and feelings, like I need to feel that I'm important to you, I need to feel accepted by you. Really having that heard and seen by your partner, and then having your partner reach out and give you that reassurance. That's tremendous for healing.
And that builds trust.
Yes. And it builds the trust in the couple that you can go through these bumpy times and get back on the road.
Right. So you're going to start getting triggered less, at least with this person, because you're doing this repair work where they're realizing that you can go through a challenging time and they're not leaving you, they're not rejecting you, they're not trying to control you.
That's right, and you trust that even when you have a fairly large upset, there is a way to get back in harmony, and that's by using the repair process. It's basically a one-page script of how to talk to your partner in a conscious and vulnerable way rather than in that automatic way that we speak, like you never and why am I married to you, that automatic way that we often speak when we have our buttons pushed.
You talk about in the book about how we create stories, and we know that's true. We all do it. And it oftentimes it has absolutely nothing to do with the other person, but it has to do with past experiences that are kind of coming back to revisit us. How do you help people deal with their story and separate themselves from their story and not let their story negatively impact their relationships?
We have an exercise that the reader in the book can go through where they identify. We have a list of like about 50 possible stories, and you can look through there, like I don't matter to you, etc. And those kind of things. There's some commonality among all people because there's commonality among people's fears.
Right.
And so we help people look down the list and see which story you've ever played in your mind. Okay, so that's the first step. And then you reveal that to your partner if you're doing this work with a partner. And so you're both a little more tuned in. And when you see what your common stories are, like Donna's stories all have to do with not being important, being ignored, being abandoned, being rejected, anything that has distance or disconnection, she'll make up stories that it's her fault and so forth. And so she sees a consistency. If she does this exercise, she sees, all my stories are sort of like that. So once you've identified your stories, then when you hear that playing in your mind when you're triggered, you're more able over time with practice to recognize, oh, that means I'm triggered. And that fear is already a fear that I've been carrying around since way before I even met my partner. That's me. And that reveals a core need that probably wasn't fully met in childhood, like the need to feel protected or valued and so forth. And so you use that to help yourself realize that the story is probably a misunderstanding based on your own fears.
And so this is kind of a big deal to get two people to share their stories, right? This makes everyone feel really vulnerable to share their stories. These are really profound statements that require trust and vulnerability, right?
That's right. And so there's the book is sort of like a self-guided course for beginning to get deeper and deeper into self-revelation with your partner. So it builds, you don't jump right in and say the most vulnerable thing, maybe if you haven't been talking like this to your partner,
right,
in a long, long time or ever. So we work up to this kind of thing, and we start with helping people notice, understand the whole triggering process, so they won't feel so ashamed that they do get triggered, because it's
absolutely.
It's a nervous system event. It's not like you intended to get triggered or you intended to start yelling and screaming at your partner or ignoring them. It wasn't. And so we give some rationale for triggers and some of the neurophysiology of triggers that help kind of take the blame out of it. And then it's a little easier to share vulnerability once you've taken the shame and blame out of it.
Yeah, and both of those are so big, right? So let's talk about the importance of communication. We know that is essential. Healthy communication's essential in all of our relationships, and it really determines our success in relationships and in life. I feel very strongly about communication, and that any book that is dealing with building healthy relationships has to have important communication skills in there, as your book does. So let's delve into that aspect of your book.
Yeah, well, to have healthy communication, sometimes you need some guidance in making important distinctions in communication, such as what really happened, like Eric's looking at his cell phone. That's what really happened.
Right.
Distinguished from what my mind does with what happened, which is my mind makes up a story that I'm not important to him. So that's an important distinction in communication. Another one is communicating to relate, which is basically revealing something about your own feelings and needs, versus communicating to control, which is strategizing to get a certain effect. Like even though the triggering process might be automatic, there are certain automatic control patterns that people do to in a sense, that they're unconscious of it, but to either protect themselves from harm or to push the other person away. And so the things that you might do to protect yourself from being further hurt, let's say, Eric's doing his cell phone thing and Donna's getting angry and hurt. Underneath the anger is hurt.
Right.
What she might do is a control pattern. This is communicating to control. Is start criticizing him. Well, at least the waiter's paying attention to me, she says.
Right.
Because these
classic passive aggressive, right?
Yes, right. These little control mechanisms,
right,
somehow unconsciously help you feel like you're more on top of the situation than you really are. Because to feel
Right, but
hurt.
you're not improving the situation is the problem, right? You say, and you hear, it's so uncomfortable when people say stuff like that too, isn't it?
Yeah, when we see people when we're at a couple's dinner party and
So
doing
awkward.
that, everyone's cringing, or
Yeah.
you might get on a sitcom, even although sitcoms.
Do you ever just make an intervention, Susan? Just go right in there
Oh,
and
you know
say,
what I do?
we're going to stop this now. This is a nightmare.
I make humorous interventions at these dinner parties. Yes, I do. How about you?
Carry copies of your book.
Yeah, here's my card.
Yeah, play relationship building games.
Yeah. I have three relationship skills games: the Getting Real card game, the Truth in Dating card game, and the Truth at Work card game.
Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, while we're on that topic, why
website,
don't you tell everyone how they can find you?
My website is SusanCampbell.com, spelled like Campbell's soup.
Great.
And I've created these games to teach important communication skills such as relating more and controlling less, and staying on your own side of the net, which means talk about what I feel and what I
I
think.
wanted to get to that as one of your communication tips. Yeah.
Yeah, so the opposite of staying on your own side of the net, and this would be another example of controlling behavior, is I see you're not interested in what I have to say. That type of thing. You're talking about the other person's motives and feelings, and really that's dangerous ground. So these are some of the
mind reading, mind reading, right?
Mind reading, and
never works.
And it's a control mechanism because our tender little egos as humans, we like to feel like we know. We can't stand not knowing, so we fill in the blanks, and we feel helpless. I feel helpless. My partner's ignoring me over there at the other side of the table. But instead of just feeling my helplessness, which would be really good, this is what I recommend and what you probably would recommend, Michelle.
Yeah.
But instead of feeling, we get into doing something to push away the feeling, like criticizing or making a snide remark.
Yeah. I describe it in my book, Love Me, Don't Leave Me, as that game where remember the hot potato game? Did you play that when you were a kid where, you keep passing the hot potato? And of course, when the music stops, like someone's left holding the hot potato, but it's uncomfortable. What the action that we take to get rid of our discomfort is not helpful, right?
That's right. And we don't, what this whole practice here, the practice of the repair skills, it's learning how to be more comfortable with the normal discomforts of an adult relationship. Because it's not always going to be comfortable. Sometimes you have different needs, but how to hold that and regulate yourself, co-regulate your partner, hold that discomfort with your higher brain online rather than reacting to get away from that discomfort. So that's part of the work of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we're wired that way. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and chat more about Susan Campbell's book, 5-Minute Relationship Repair. You're listening to Relationships 2.0. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, both of my daughters were pregnant, and everything I was looking forward to turned into everything I was going to miss. First words, first steps. Today, those babies are 3. I'm with them all the time. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm here today.
A Susan G. Komen grant helped pay for Alanthea surgery, and today she's caring for her grandchildren. Help save lives. Visit IamSusanGKomen.org. A public service message from Susan G. Komen.
Do you tend to overreact and let your emotions rule your interactions with others? Do you become defensive or find it difficult to see things from another's point of view? Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen. You're not alone. Despite the fact that we all have to deal with people in our daily lives, many of us have difficulties with interpersonal relationships. My suggestion? Pick up a copy of the Interpersonal Problems Workbook. This book combines powerful evidence-based techniques for strengthening relationships in all areas of your life, whether it's at home or work, with a significant other, a parent, or your child. To find out more about the Interpersonal Problems Workbook, go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Pick up a copy and improve your relationships.
Thank you for keeping it tuned to KCAA Radio. AM 1050 gives you all the information you need to know and maybe just a little bit more.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm Michelle Skeen. My special guest today is Susan Campbell. She's the author of 5-Minute Relationship Repair, Quickly Heal Upsets, Deepen Intimacy, and Use Differences to Strengthen Love. Welcome back, Susan.
Thank you.
So we were talking about communication, and obviously, it's important to communicate directly, not in these indirect ways that you were mentioning before we went to break. What's the most useful communication skill that you offer?
I would say helping people identify their core feelings and their core needs so that they can communicate what they like. The need for reassurance that I'm important would be something Donna needs. And we often just think in terms of what we don't want rather than what we do want. So that's one thing. I want people to remember a complaint. That's a reactive way of communicating. A complaint is a want in disguise. So when you hear yourself reacting against something, see if you can drop in and find the want that's there.
Like flip it so you're looking at kind of the more positive aspect of what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, it's easier to hear your partner when they're telling you what they want rather than what you did wrong.
Although, again, that's protective, right? So if you tell someone what they're doing wrong, in order to express your want or your need, you're having to be vulnerable, right? Because then if you're used to being rejected, then maybe you're expecting that it'll be rejected, or the person will just say, you know what, I can't give that to you. You're too needy. You want too much. I can't meet those needs. So that's a big fear for people.
Yes, it is. And that's a reality. Sometimes when you ask for what you want, you could hear no. And yet if you do express yourself in this vulnerable way, the chances are so increased that your want is going to be met.
Absolutely. Well, or maybe you find another way. This whole idea that our partner should meet all of our needs. Maybe by identifying your needs and getting to know yourself better and understanding your partner better, you can accept that, okay, maybe they can't meet this need of mine, but my friend can. This is
Right, or
something
maybe
that,
my partner doesn't want to make love right now, but maybe later, or maybe we can cuddle instead of doing
right.
everything. You can scale back your wants. Once you can communicate your wants in this open way, your partner may say, well, gee, I'm not right in the same place right now, but how about, you can problem solve how to both.
Right, make some kind of
People are not
compromise.
triggered. Yeah, when people are triggered, they start to feel like enemies. But when people
Yeah.
speak vulnerably, it's like they're safe so they can problem solve and be creative, and it's a whole different kind of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So the follow-up to that in your book is that you suggest that the partners agree not to scare each other. Say more about that.
Yeah, well, the first thing is to realize that often you inadvertently do scare your partner just by your own protective behaviors, what we call your control patterns, like making a snide remark. I didn't mean, I'm just trying to protect myself by making that snide remark, to lighten up my hurt feelings so I don't hurt so much, for example. But that snide remark is very hurtful to my partner. So we try to help people realize that is a way that you inadvertently scare your partner, and we help people look at the vicious cycle that usually is at the core of both of the triggering events that couples suffer. When I say a vicious cycle, it's like you have the feeling that here we go again. Even last time we were fighting about money, this time it's about the kids, but it has the same feeling that my needs are not important to him. Or he might have the same feeling that she doesn't really want to hear my ideas. She just really wants to control this and so forth. You have these recurring stories and you have these recurring feelings. And that's what we call your vicious cycle. Like the more she criticizes, the more he shuts down, and the more
she criticizes because he shut down and she wants him to be available. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, you can see how all of these patterns get created. One of the things you do in the book, which I like, is just to get people kind of in the habit of how they should be responding instead of reacting, is you create this kind of repair statement, a sort of script for people to put their, you have blanks for people to fill in. Talk about this idea and why this is important. And how it can be used so it doesn't feel like it's just this, like when when your kid was little and you said you need to apologize to little Johnny, and he'd say, I'm sorry, but like he didn't really mean it. It was just like this, they were saying what they were told to say. So how do you incorporate something like this, which I think is really helpful and a good habit to create, without it seeming like it lacks authenticity?
Good, yeah. So first, the whole thing about a repair script, we're trying to get across the notion that even though you've done something that you regret, you can actually do it over. We've got phrases like a do-over, or I call it going out and coming in again. And you basically get a chance to say to your partner, this is the overall repair, if I was more conscious 5 minutes ago when I bit your head off with my criticisms, if I had been more conscious, here's what I wish I would have said. And the script gets you to say the exact words that come from a deeper part of yourself, like, I was triggered, I had a story based on some old childhood wounds,
Mm-hmm.
that my needs are not important. And if I had it to do over, I would have told you I was triggered and told you that was going on. And I would have said, honey, I think I just need you to hug me and tell me I'm important to you right now. And so what you're doing, it might sound a little rote at first, but you're training, by saying the exact words you wish you said had you been more conscious, you're training yourself to have the confidence that maybe you can be more conscious in the future, or maybe you can shorten the lag time between you say a reactive, hurtful thing and when you come back and redo it so that it's what you really were feeling underneath all your defensiveness.
Right.
So it retrains yourself, really, by speaking the exact words.
And it gets, and it makes it easier for your partner to understand exactly what you're trying to communicate, especially for people who have a really difficult time adopting helpful forms of communication, right? It's really easy to just be in those same patterns, especially, I'm sure a lot of people who are going to want to access this book they're feeling stuck in their relationship. Maybe they've been together for years, for decades, and they have the same entrenched style of communication that's really unhealthy. Lots of apologies follow these blow-ups, and then the same thing happens all over again, right?
Right, but the apologies don't really
mean anything anymore.
They don't really give new information about yourself. Like if I had it to do over,
that's
in. And also, the repair script is very simple. Like, I'd like a hug or I'd like some reassurance. No.
Right.
Give the person something that they can win at. You don't say, I want you to be more romantic. That's really vague. But, I want you to know that's the person knows how to do that. So you're more apt to get it. It teaches you to speak your needs in a simple way without a lot of disclaimers and explanations, and to get to the heart of the matter more quickly.
I really like what you said about the apology. That's really, I hadn't thought about an apology that way. I mean, I think an apology is really, a sincere apology is really powerful. But you're right. And with those kind of ruptures, when the couple come back together and apologize to each other, they aren't giving each other any new information. Say more about that. I think that's really an important aspect to highlight.
Yeah, well, you're building by saying, for example, earlier when I gave her an example, I said it reminded me of all the times that I was little and I was ignored at the dinner table. That is part of the repair sometimes. That's an optional phrase because not everybody has memories. But that builds empathy for yourself. It builds empathy between your partner and yourself. Like it's easy for your partner to feel tender toward you. They don't feel blamed. They're seeing you more. And so that's another thing that this kind of language does. It gives the information that you need in order to feel safe with me and not blamed, and also to realize where I'm coming from. So that if you know that I've been ignored a lot, then you might know after a while, after doing a number of these repairs over and over with the same partner, you can quickly reassure your partner, I see I've been ignoring you for a while. I want to come back and just let you know it's so nice to be out to dinner with you on this special date night or something. That may sound a little scripted there because I just pulled it out of the air. But if it's in the moment and you feel that maybe, I haven't been meeting my partner's needs, it builds in more of a we feeling. Like I believe couples evolve to the place where they're kind of like a we system. They are more tuned in to one another. And doing this repair helps you stay tuned in to one another more consistently.
Yeah. One of the other things you mentioned that I think is a really huge issue with couples, really with all people, but you talk about the importance of clearing the air regularly. And I think about how, like if we're using the example of, Donna, that maybe the first time that Eric is on his phone during dinner, she doesn't say anything. And then he does it again and she still doesn't say anything. And then he does it a third time and she just completely explodes because she hasn't addressed something that was important to her at the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, it seems like with couples often, there's a lot of built up resentment. Like they don't say anything, they don't say anything, they don't say anything. And then all of a sudden it's like World War III. So talk about why it's important to clear the air and also how to do that without turning your relationship into this constant processing of emotions and feelings and all of that, you know, because that's not fun either.
Yep, I understand. So, first of all, let's just say that couples do shove the stuff under the carpet, like Donna, you know, she kind of tries to ignore it, and then the third or fourth time he does it, she blows up. So we all know that dynamic. And what that means in my world is that, you know, we just get too busy, or maybe we're trying to be more grown up than we really feel. Various things keep us from just saying, honey, I felt a little disconnected from you during dinner. And if I had it to do over, I would have told you that while you're checking your messages, could we just hold hands or something so I can feel connected? You know, I wish I'd done that. So, you know,
right.
Those kind of preemptive clearings, we actually need to schedule those for most of us. You know, like once a week. One of the easy ones that does not get into endless processing is something like, you agree on a sentence structure, such as each person saying, is there anything that I've done this week that's created distance between us? And you invite your partner to clear, you know, oh yeah, you were checking your cell phone. And then has created closeness between us. You know, you say that too because you're...
Right. You need the positive reinforcement as well instead of always the focus on what's missing or what's problematic, right?
Right, exactly. And so that makes it, you know, that opens up the door for appreciations and celebrating, oh yeah, we did good this week. You know, okay, we had that other thing that wasn't so pleasant. And both people take a turn. So that's one of the rituals. We have several different rituals.
Yeah.
And
I do think it's really important for everyone, even with friends and your kids or you know, the people you're around, even the barista at pizza or wherever, to just validate when people are doing nice things. They're going to do nice things more often.
Sure, yeah. I have another book called Saying What's Real that emphasizes the importance of appreciation, how to do that, and also has some other clearing rituals. Because
yeah, it's really important. I think so often we're very quick to criticize or point out something we don't like and very slow to acknowledge nice things that are happening.
Yes, and that's part of the co-regulation, the ongoing co-regulation practices that we recommend in the book are
yeah.
You know, hugging when you first see your partner at the end of a day, those kind of things. We take couples through a little exercise, or individuals too, to visualize kind of like your ideal movie. What's your ideal movie of how you would be with each other when you both come from being separated? And then you talk about that. So each couple can create something that's tailored to them. I don't want to say every couple should hug all the time, but for some people that's really an important practice too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, physical contact is always important, I think, for people feeling grounded and seen and appreciated. We're almost out of time, but I want to give you a chance to bring up anything in the book that I'd love to talk about. The power of vulnerability. It's such a big topic, though. I don't know if we have time. Maybe you could say something, you know, kind of quick about that, but it is so important to strengthen all of our relationships and really add depth and dimension to our relationships.
Yeah, let me remind those of us who are on a growth path, and probably most of your listeners, whether they know it or not, are attempting to grow and be more of who they really are. And any of us know that we've been kind of desensitized by life, in the sense that we try to protect our vulnerable little hearts, from being rejected or hurt or judged. And so we've actually, over the course of our lifetime, our conditioning has desensitized us. So an intimate relationship and using these repair tools and these clearing tools is actually a resensitization process, which means that you accept that your partner's behavior really affects you. But this takes inner strength to be affected, and that's what vulnerability really means. It's going through life, letting life impact you, not unduly. You do have to be able to regulate yourself and your level of excitation. But this is a high value, and I'd like to just underscore that for our listeners. A high value to be sensitive to reality, to what's really going on around you. You'll make better decisions. You'll enjoy life more. You'll feel that life force running through you, that aliveness. And
you don't end up getting hurt anymore being vulnerable than in fact less. And the payoff is huge. Well, Susan, I really enjoyed your book, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I really appreciate you taking time. And again, Susan's website is susancampbell.com. The book is 5-Minute Relationship Repair. And you can also find out more information about Susan and also future guests by going to michelleskeen.com. Thanks so much, Susan. I hope to have you back. You have other books. We should chat again.
Thank you for the great work you're doing in the world, too.
Oh, thank you. It's always great to chat with someone who is doing important work to bring people together. So thank you again.
Yeah, great questions, and I look forward to talking again. Bye.
Terrific. I'd love that. You've been listening to Relationships 2.0. I'll be back next week with another great guest. Be well. Thanks for joining me.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
I'm Chris Maurer, CNBC Business Radio. Stocks are mixed. The Dow's down 82 points, the Nasdaq higher by 23. The earnings parade continues with Under Armour beating profit and revenue estimates, but its sales outlook was not what analysts were hoping for. Harley-Davidson turned in mixed results, the motorcycle manufacturer with better than forecast profits, but revenue came up short. Harley also lowering its sales outlook for the year. Lockheed Martin posting a 6% drop in profit because of lower government military spending. And David Einhorn's Greenlight Capital buys into General Motors again. Nearly a year ago, the $11 billion fund sold off its position